Right through this great overland adventure, we've taken you to various museums, automotive ones obviously, all through the world. And this is our first museum visit here in Australia. It's the National Motor Racing Museum. We're about 200 kilometers away from Sydney now in Bathurst. And it sits right next to the Mount Panorama racetrack,
which is called the Blue Hell. So the Nürburgring is called the Green Hell because it's a very treacherous track, an absolutely awesome track to drive on, which I believe you have done. I've done it a long time back. This is called the Blue Hell because it is in the Blue Mountains, and also because it is also very dangerous.
And this is of course Peter Brock. It's a nice little sculpture here that instantly tells you you've arrived at the museum. It's not been here right from the start, but it was installed a few years ago because of course he won the race here 9 times, and so in commemoration to that,
the King of the Mountain.
King of the Mountain. There he is standing on top of his 1984 Commodore, and of course holding aloft that trophy, but plenty more heritage inside. So shall we?
Yep.
So multiple champion Peter Brock, we showed you that sculpture outside. Now this is that car, the same one that's in that sculpture, because of course it was the car that helped him complete a hat-trick of wins at the Bathurst 1000. And it's a nice little exhibit here because next to this car, which of course won in 1984, you have this one, which is a much older car, the Ford Cortina, which won way back in 1965. And the reason I'm finding this interesting is because, you know, putting these two cars next to each other, it's a nice little contrast of how much things changed in motor racing. I mean, take a look at this car, very humble looking car. It's a typical family sedan, of course, which is what it was supposed to be.
So the V8 touring car series in Australia has always been about Ford and Holden, but it's not always been so. This is a standout car. This is the 77 car that took Ford to a 1-2. It's a very famous victory for the Falcons. Now earlier, it used to be the Falcon with this huge body, big engine, and GM, Holden in fact, used to race with the Torano, which was a much smaller car, of course with a big engine. But if you see the difference in the size, this was how the classic rivalry was. Then came the foreign makes. So in the 80s, Jaguar competed very successfully with the V12 engine. This was completely built in the UK by Tom Walkinshaw Racing. And then after that, later on in the 80s, came the Japanese with their turbocharged engines. This was the Nissan Bluebird. Later on, of course, the GTRs also came to the V8 touring car series, and they completely dominated it.
Well, it just shows you how much more commercial things got as well. And then, as if the 80s weren't bad enough, well, it just got even more commercial much later. And so take a look at this one. The 2006 Champion Falcon is even more sort of bathed in brands. So it's nice, and that's the thing that you always pick up at museums, right? You see a progression through time. All the older winners are all here, the newer winners are all here as well. And then, of course, there's that whole legendary rivalry between Holden and Ford that comes through.
We also had other makes. Now this is the Holden Commodore. So with the Commodore, Holden started getting back into action and started rivaling Ford. And the Australians, they loved Ford and Holden. You either were a Ford guy or you were a Holden guy. They didn't really care about the foreign brands. And pride of place at the Motor Museum is Wayne Gardner's 87 title-winning Honda. This is the 2-stroke bike. Gardner is one of Australia's greatest motorcycle racers. Of course, Nick Doohan, everybody knows of him too. Australia produced a lot of great racing drivers and riders, and all of them are commemorated here at the Racing Museum.